Welcome to part 2 of the Kinetic Harrier build here on Rick Scale Model Fix. In part 1 we got the fuselage together up until the point where it was cemented together and complete. So just off camera I've tidied the seams up on the upper surface. I haven't done anything with the undersurfaces yet, and we're going to look at attaching the wings to the kit. So traditionally with these Harrier kits from Kinetic, the wing to fuselage join has been particularly challenging. This is not the case. It's just a question of being aware of some of the issues with the kit and correcting those before we progress. So to that end, what I've already done with this one is prepared the fit of this top section, and as you can see with just light finger pressure there, the join is already fairly good. So what we've done to achieve that is we have sanded this area like so, just a couple of swipes to go until the fit is achievable and happy and everything's good, like so. And the next thing we've done is just in here there's two ridges that this part sits on, so these have been scraped with a knife blade to reduce the height, just like that. And what that does is it ensures that this part then fits perfectly with light finger pressure into the recess that it's designed to go in. Nothing major, nothing more than 10 minutes with sanding stick and a knife blade. So when that's glued in now, we'll attach that with super glue. And then we'll just put a tiny bead of Mr. Surfacer around there to complete the join. One of the other issues with the kit is this fuselage tends to spread and not sort of meet the underside of the wing, which leaves quite a gap. And that can be rectified by either putting in the mechanism for the rotating nozzles, or just by putting a spreader bar in between the two sides of the fuselage there. So we'll come to that later. Before we join the wings, however, though, there is a bit of work that needs to be done to improve the fit of the parts and also the look of the finished model. The first bit, on the inside of the lower surface of the wings, at the very edge there's a raised triangular section. That needs to be sanded completely away as it interferes with the fit of the wing, and also the end of the wingtip near the outrigger needs to be reprofiled to more of a square rather than a sort of curve. Again, nothing more challenging than 5 or 10 minutes with a sanding sponge and a knife. Also, the trailing edges of the wings need to be thinned considerably to avoid a stepped look to the flight controls, the aileron and the flaps. And there's going to be a small amount of filler needed in there. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to join these together, and we're going to look at getting the wing mounted onto the fuselage. So we're going to need some strips of Tamiya tape. So this wing has already been corrected. So we're just going to line that up. And we're just going to put in some cement on the inboard section of the leading edge first, and we're just going to hold that with the glue bites, and then we're going to do the flap recess. working our way to the wingtip. And then we're going to hold these in place with just small amounts of Tamiya tape, just because we've removed the locating pins with sanding. We don't want the wing to slip. And then finally we're just going to do this outboard section wingtip. Like so. So unfortunately the join for the wing does become higher than the halfway line, so there is going to be some Mr. Filler and Mr. Surfacer filler added in there just to tidy everything up. There we go. It's at this point we can now check the fit is still acceptable and that we've not made anything come out of sort of kilter. So again, finger pressure, holding that part in. The engine covers are perfect, and also we've got that little bit of a gap underneath. There's nothing too insurmountable, it's average for the kit. And we'll just need to be careful where we've sanded the section of the wing down, that it now sits slightly lower than the fuselage, but that can be altered with a small amount of super glue just to hold everything in place. So yeah, all looking good. So I'm just going to sand that inside surface just to give us a tiny little bit of wiggle room. And again, once we've got super glue on there, and that's all in place, that's fantastic. So I'm just going to work on this other section of the wing just to show you what needs to be done. So first of all we need to lose some of these locating pins because they're getting in the way. I tend to keep this one as it aids the alignment of the wing. So we're going to lose these at the trailing edge. And we're just going to sand using Flory Models medium sander, and we're just going to sand away. So. And then we need to tackle this triangular race section. So we'll come in at this angle and we're just going to remove that. There's another locating pin there at the outrigger intersection, so we'll get rid of that. And then we're going to do a test fit. So as you can see, it does go together, and then we need to remove this part here. There we go, I don't know if you can see that on camera. It doesn't quite match the cutout for the wing. So we're just going to pare that away. The knife blade, and make it match the contour best we can. and then the wing will sit flush. So we just need to take a little more of that away. Tiny bit more just to make the wing sit flush at the wing tip. I didn't quite manage it on the other one. And then all that will be needed is a tiny dab of filler just to fill the void and make everything look really neat. There we go. Again, I'll just tidy this inboard edge up and give it a snap. That fits really well. So the reason we thin the trailing edge of the wing down is to avoid the ailerons and flaps having a stepped effect, which is caused, this is the opposite side but give you the general idea, it sits between the two surfaces and it doesn't sit flush. When you put the aileron with its hinges into position, it sits within the sandwich of the two wing parts, so it needs to be thinned down, and it is quite a considerable amount, so we'll keep going. A bit of the sprue attachment point there, so we'll move that. So after some more fit sanding, we're just going to conduct another test fit, so everything fits, and we're just going to offer the aileron up into its location, and that's a far better fit. So we're good to glue the other lower wing section in place. I'll just clean the workbench. So just as we did with the other side, we're just going to secure this in place. And in the same format as we did at the other side, we're just going to glue the leading edge wing root first. Followed by the flat recess on the leading edge, on the trailing edge. Again, before the glue dries, we're going to offer the wing back to the fuselage, and just making sure we've not compromised the fit of anything. And again, as you can see, everything looks good. Under finger pressure, once we get some super glue on there to hold that in place, we should be good. And there's not that big a seam on the undersurface of the wings, the wing roots. So there's a little bit more work to do to the wings before we can join them to the fuselage, so we need to just fill up the leading edges with a bit of filler because of the joint sits higher than the halfway line. And we need to put a couple of panels in and put the flight controls. So join me back at the bench in a short while. Welcome back to the cutting mat, and the wings now attached to the model and sat to one side drying, and we turn our attention to the tail. In the kit there's two tails provided, so you need to check as to which version of the model that you're making requires which assembly to be built up, and as we're doing the Gr3 in this kit, it's going to be the tail with the radar warning receiver. So this built up as described in the kit. We missed out the landing gear for the time being, we've not looked at the nose, and we've built up also the rear appendage with the different types of stinger. This is where we're at the moment. So the wing is now attached to the fuselage, and hopefully you can see on camera there, no real nasty scene resulted. And we've also added the tail and the rear end. So to this end we need to put some Mr. Surfacer on these joints. So we're just going to give that a shake. And using a cocktail stick, we're just going to run Mr. Surfacer along the joint. Like so. And once this is dry, we can remove this with a cotton bud soaked in IPA, and all it does is it just evens out any gaps that we've got in the joint, and it just makes for a neater overall look. And to some degree it can also hide any slight imperfections, but it's more importantly just to dress those seams and make them look part of the model. So, I need to look at the area along the leading edge of the wings. Now the Mr. Surfacer is not going to hide any massive holes or anything, so it's just a question of getting everything to look quite neat. And ready for that application of primer, so we just need to add some to the base of the fin. Now this does shrink a little bit, so it's not uncommon to have to use a couple of applications, but it doesn't have to be pretty. It's easy to remove, like we said, with the IPA and the cotton bud dipped in it, and it doesn't remove any of the surrounding surface detail. So just shrinking back a little bit there, and a little bit more. And that's where we'll leave the model now and conclude part 2. So I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far. In the next part we're hoping to get this Mr. Surfacer tidied up and perhaps even a coat of primer. There's still a long way to go yet, so we've got all the underneath to do. We've got the armament and pylons to build up, tail planes, etc. So until next time, please stay safe, keep well and enjoy your bench time.